Okay, hello everybody, welcome to the Why I Love podcast. This is episode 1. The last podcast, I guess, is sort of episode 0. It was just like a little intro about the podcast, why I'm doing it, who I am, things like that. If you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to it if you want to. I mean, the main thing is that the sound quality isn't very good because I'm on an iPad. My voice isn't very good because I'm a slow-talking, grouchy old person. And yeah, I'm going to try my hardest. I'm new to podcasts, I've never really done them before. Or ever, and all this is new, and I'm sorry. Okay, so let's begin. This episode is on Banjo Kazooie. I think Banjo Kazooie is amazing. If you've not played it, it's a 3D platformer. It came out on the N64, and Mario 64 had already been out, and I think that blew a lot of people's minds. It was fantastic, don't get me wrong. I don't want to start this podcast by having everybody hate me, because Mario 64 is an absolute classic game. But for me, Banjo was just so much better, and a lot of this podcast is going to be my nostalgia, and so let's break it down. Like, I got an N64. I think it was some sort of like joint Christmas birthday present. It was one of those deals, it was far too expensive to get. Now, my friend was getting an N64 at the same time, so our parents decided that we couldn't possibly get the same games. Now, in some ways, I did win, I think, in the long term. At the time, I was disappointed because he got GoldenEye, and I was always really jealous. And he got Zelda, so maybe he did win. But I don't know, I mean, I got Mario 64 and I got Banjo Kazooie. I mean, two just amazing games. I mean, I know that wasn't a launch title game, but for me as a kid, that was the launch. So it was like I was finally getting this system. I had these two incredible platformers to play, and I mean, the thing that's funny is I didn't know anything about Banjo. Like, I got a 64 because I'd seen Mario in like PC World or Curry's or whatever it was then, and it absolutely stunned me. I'd never seen a game like that. I hadn't seen a game in 3D in that way. The movement, everything you could do, I just thought was incredible, and that's why I wanted one. And Banjo was just kind of bundled in, and yet Banjo to this day is probably up there, definitely in the top 10 of my all-time favourite games. I mean, I played that game so much as a kid, and I've played it again a few times. It's come out on Live Arcade on the 360 and things like that. It's a really good version of it as well. If anyone is listening to this, they've never played it before, try and get that one. It's backwards compatible. You can get it in the rare replay pack as well. It's brilliant. It's really, really good. So yeah, I got this N64, and I had this game Banjo, and obviously I played Mario first because that's why I wanted the N64. That's what I was excited for. And after a while, you're a kid, you move on, you get bored of things. I thought, right, I best try this other game I've got. Wasn't really sure about it. It sounded a bit weird, didn't really know how to pronounce the name and stuff. And I put it on, and I remember just sort of thinking, this just like a bit of a rip-off of Mario, really. And I think a lot of people at the time did as well, to be honest. I mean, I had no idea. I was far too young to know that Rare were like a second-party studio, Nintendo and things like that. I had no idea about time frames of when these games were made, or budgets or teams or who Rare was. I had no idea it was an English game at the time. But it really wasn't long before it just totally hit me, that game. And I remember in Mario I'd never been that arsed about like doing the stars and things and collecting all the coins, and I just got enough to finish the game, really. Whereas with Banjo, the idea of getting 100 notes in a level, I don't know why it stuck, but it just really did, and I just thought it was amazing. And that might seem so stupid now to say that, like, collecting 100 notes, but it wasn't just the collecting the notes, it it was where they were placed and how they were placed. It was really smart. It sort of led you around the level to different missions, and if you haven't played the game, basically the notes, there's 100 on each level. You have to go and collect them all. Now in the original, it was really annoying on the N64 because I think it was a memory issue with the console, but if you left the level, all of the notes came back. So if you got 99 notes, you couldn't then go back in and just look for that one you missed. And in a way, that's probably why I got so addicted to the game, because you could spend 2 hours in a level and you refuse to come off your console and you would refuse to leave the level until you got that 100th note. But yeah, so the notes you collect, and they're sort of used to progress through the game. There's certain doors that won't open until you have a certain amount of notes. But you also get jiggies, which are little jigsaw pieces, and they unlock new worlds. You literally complete a jigsaw with them to unlock the next world. Now the cool thing about the way the notes worked is they would really like draw you around the level, so you'd be looking for these extra notes. They'd kind of lead up paths, they'd lead up trees, they'd lead in different directions. And that would take you to these sort of little in-world missions. And all these little sort of missions to get jiggies were just really fun. Like, even just in the first world, there was some really interesting ideas, some really cool little puzzles, and they introduce you to some other stuff as well. So there's the whole Mumbo Jumbo thing, which is fantastic. So again, if you haven't played it, Mumbo Jumbo is basically some little shaman guy that you find, and you have to collect these little silver skulls that he's hidden around. You'd go to him, you give him these skulls, and he could turn you into stuff. It only happened in certain levels, but he would, like, in the first level, he would turn you into a little ant. Or a termite, I think you were. And then there was certain places that you could only get to as that termite, or certain missions that, you know, you could do a lot better as the thing he turned you into and things. And that was just brilliant. Like, it just totally changed the level. And that whole thing of just, like, going into a level and not knowing, like, what you might get turned into. I remember that being, like, a really big, exciting thing as a kid. Desperately trying to get those tokens as quick as possible just to see what I was going to become. So yeah, talked about some of the scoring and stuff already, but, you know, I haven't even talked about who Banjo and Kazooie are. So the game is named after the two heroes. So Banjo is this bear, and Kazooie is a bird who lives in his backpack. And Banjo obviously plays a banjo, as you might have heard in that title sequence. Kazooie plays a kazoo, and that's why they got the name. So the story is basically that there's an evil witch and she's taken your sister and she wants to take the beauty from her and put it in herself. It's a weird story. I mean, it doesn't need to be a great story, does it? It's 3D platformer for kids. But the story works. I mean, it sets you up, it gives you this quick little intro, it gives you a mission to do. So you leave your house, and luckily, really, your house is located directly next to the witch's lair, so that works for Banjo. It doesn't have to go too far. But on the way to the lair is like a sort of tutorial world, and you meet the first character, Bottles the Mole, and he is great. So he shows up in the whole game, and he teaches you new moves. So at the beginning he teaches you like a basic attack, and then you'll find him in other levels. He might teach you how to fly, or teach you how to do like a huge jump, backflip, or special run. There's so many moves in this game. It was brilliant trying to memorize all the different moves, and even now I can still kind of feel the muscle memory of like trying to activate some of these moves. They would all sort of help you either complete levels in certain ways, or maybe give you access to new areas in Gruntilda's lair. Gruntilda is the witch. You know, a special run that lets you run up really steep ramps, so you can get to new areas and stuff like that, or learn how to swim, or learn how to fly, so you can fly up to things. And yeah, so Bottles was really fun. Sadly, he's dead. Rest in peace, Bottles. So yeah, once you've done the little tutorial level, you kind of have your basics of how to move, and I don't know, maybe this is just because I was a kid, but thinking about it, like, I suppose these tutorials at the time, they were still really trying to teach people how 3D games worked. I mean, yeah, people had had Mario and stuff, but it was still a new thing then. Like, you were learning how to swim underwater, which it didn't work perfectly in this, and I don't think has ever really worked perfectly in a game. But how to run, how to do double jumps and things like that. So this has a double jump in the sense that when you jump twice, Kazooie comes out and flaps her wings. So the way the characters work together were really great for all that stuff. But yeah, all that stuff was new. Like, weirdly, a very sort of memorable tutorial for me. I can't think of many other games where I can actually even remember that they have a tutorial, but I can remember this tutorial world like so well. And then you go into this castle. It's a lair, they call it. It's sort of like a big witch's face with a bridge going into a mouth that you walk across. And you go in, and straight away, like the music in this game is brilliant. And I will try and put as much of it in this podcast as I can, because it's just, I love it so much. They just nailed the music. It was like one of the first times I'd played a game, I think, and just kind of thought, wow, this is like watching a movie, like a Disney film, or like watching a really good cartoon or something. Like, before that, games had just never really reached that level for me. And I was still quite young, so I just adored all this. I just thought it was incredible, and I still do. Like, I mean, the music was brilliant, and then you've got that playing, then suddenly you've got Gruntilda's voice, like, talking over to you, and the way they do it is all the characters in the game kind of make these weird little noises, and then the text would come on screen, because obviously cartridges couldn't really hold that much. It would have been a lot of work, a lot of money to get voice acting, but it was fantastic. It just totally worked. It fitted the world really well. All these characters had these really funny, sort of hilarious little voices and noises that they made. And everything she said was a rhyme. And it sounds stupid, but again, it was just really funny at the time. All these great little poems, and Rare do this amazing thing. At the time, I didn't realise who Rare were, or what they had made, why they were good. I didn't know they were a British company, anything like that. But they have such a good humour, and everything they did, they kind of knew it was like a kid's game, but then they would put some adult jokes in there, and like how you see with Pixar and stuff now, like, it was a really good combination. So at the age I was kind of really on the edge of like still being young but kind of starting to understand like older jokes and things, so it just completely appealed to me the way they did it. It's a great game. I'm going to say that a lot throughout this. But yes, so you'd walk in there was just like one little thing that you could jump up, and you got this jigsaw piece. Now that, again, brilliant sound effect when you pick that up, and I still think about that noise quite a lot. I know a lot of people always have the Zelda noise in their head when they, like, you know, you open the treasure chest and there's something amazing inside, but the getting the jiggy noise for me is that, really. I love that sound. Yeah, I used to just love collecting them. Just all the little sound effects and everything in this game just made collecting stuff so much more worthwhile. And everything you were collecting had a purpose as well. And I feel like this is something that, not to go negative in the first positive podcast, but I feel like a lot of newer games in this genre have kind of forgotten this. Like, they have like, oh, collect this, collect that. Even a lot of like first person shooters have this whole, you know, oh, there's some dog tags on the floor, there's this on the floor, and you're collecting it all for no real reason. I mean, you maybe get an achievement, or you get a tiny bit of story or something from it, but in Banjo you felt like everything you was collecting was for a reason. So unlocking that first level, that was good. I have really fond memories of that level because I played that a lot. I showed friends that level a lot because I was just so blown away by this game. But it was actually the second level that, I don't know, I'd like to know if anyone's listened to this, they want to give some feedback. Like, what was your favourite level? Because this has to be mine, I think. Some of the levels in Banjo are incredible, but this one just always sticks out to me. It's the Pirate Cove level, Treasure Trove Cove, I think it was called. I got really stuck trying to get the, maybe like the 98th, the 99th and the 100th note or something like that, so I just spent forever going around this level. But that was great. I mean, in modern games, I do this, and I think this depends where you are in life. I mean, I don't have as much time now to play games, and back then YouTube didn't exist. You couldn't just easily find out where something was. But I used to love that. I used to love not being able to know where something was. Now I'd just be annoyed, but, you know, that was the challenge then. I wasn't just going to go and ask somebody how to do it or quit out. I was going to stay in that level for hours until I got those notes. And the best thing about that is you went around and you discovered so much more, and you found secret passageways that you could totally have missed, and, you know, there were some really great little secrets on that level. And one of the things that hooked me about that level was the shark. So if you've played the game, basically you'll probably remember the shark. It really stood out to me. If you went in the water, they needed a way to stop you trying to swim off forever. So they put a shark in the water, and after maybe 8 seconds of being in the water or something, you'd start hearing a kind of like fake Jaws soundtrack, and this shark would come and it would just kill you. But what was really cool about this shark is that there was kind of ways to avoid it. I mean, you could jump up out of the water and double jump, and you could sort of escape it for a little bit, and after a while I discovered that you could, one of the special moves is that Kazooie will fire eggs out of her arse, which is bizarre but very useful if you want to smack a shark in the nose with eggs. So I spent a long time doing that, trying to kill the shark, and eventually the shark would die, but if you got back in the water, another shark would come and just get you again. So I spent a long time trying to beat that shark. And the reason why is because far out in the distance there was a little, tiny little sort of island with a sign on it, and I became obsessed with trying to get to the island. I didn't know what it was, but I was convinced there was going to be a note over there that I hadn't found, or there would be a jiggy or something to collect, something cool. And this kind of leads on to another thing about Banjo which I love, and I think a lot of people loved, and that was all the Easter eggs in the game. So it turned out, this is a spoiler by the way, there's going to be a lot of spoilers in these podcasts, so if you haven't played the games and you're worried about spoilers, probably just don't listen to them. Play the game first, or, you know, a lot of these games are going to be very old, so if I'm doing anything new I will do a proper spoiler sort of warning. But yeah, when you finish the game, you see this little cutscene of, I think, 3 different things happening in the levels that, you know, that you've completed. And one of them was that this island rises up out of the water slightly, and there's a door. Another one was a key that you'd seen earlier on that was like behind this ice. I can't even think of the third one now. But I mean, I had obsessed about this little island, so to then see this cutscene at the end of the game, I was even more obsessed. I was desperate. I was going back to the game. I was really trying to kill this shark, trying to swim out to this island. I was so obsessed. Now, it turns out that they were all part of this thing called Stop and Swap, which was something that Rare wanted to implement. The idea was that when Banjo 2 came out, which ended up being called Banjo Tooie, you were going to be able to put your game of Banjo in the cartridge and then pull it out and quickly put 2 in, and because of the way the N64 stored some stuff in RAM and things, it would know that you had Banjo, and it was going to unlock stuff in Banjo 2, and these were all linked towards this Stop and Swap thing. Now, there's whole forums out there, amazing people trying to discover all this, trying to get into the code of the game and work out like what Stop and Swap is. Eventually Rare had to come out and basically say it was a feature that they were going to do. Unfortunately, they never managed to be able to do it because different N64s had different amounts of memory and different things. The way they were built slightly differently meant that it wouldn't have worked on all consoles. But as a kid, it didn't matter to me. I was just totally hooked on this, like this idea that I could, something was going to happen with this island. There was some way of getting to that key, and I love that. I totally miss that now because I would just YouTube it instantly, and you know, that's gone. I do feel, I don't want to sound like a really old man here, but I do really feel sorry for kids now, because for all the cool stuff that has come with technology, like, don't get me wrong, they have a hell of a lot of cool stuff I wish I'd had as a kid, but I really think that is missing. That thing of being able to properly learn a level because you obsess about trying to unlock something or find a way to something, or a secret that maybe, like in this case, will never actually be unlocked. So I never did get to the bottom of the mystery of those things until years later when I read about the Stop and Swap stuff. But I must have had a way of getting cheats. I think at that point the internet existed. It didn't exist like it does now, obviously, but you know, I remember like Cheat Planet and Cheat CC or something like that, going on websites like that, getting things in magazines, the little books in magazines that would have cheats in. And this is another really cool thing that I just loved about Banjo was, you know, in a lot of these games you would just go to a cheat menu and type in a code. Banjo just felt like the whole game, like from all the different characters, the music, the sounds, everything about it was so well sculptured to fit into this world. To the point that even when you were putting in cheats, there was like a special area in Treasure Trove Cove where there was an alphabet, and it was part of a mini game. I think to get one of the jiggies you had to type Banjo Kazooie into it within a certain time limit by running round to each tile on the floor and pounding the floor. But you could also use it to put in these cheats, and it was just something cool about that. I really liked that, like, you had to sort of do everything within the world. It was really nice. And that whole thing of the cheat thing being within the game world and stuff, that that was everywhere. I mean, the thing like with the jigsaws, it wasn't just like you went up to a door and it unlocked. I mean, it kind of was with the notes, but with the jigsaws, it was you were physically placing these jigsaw pieces into these jigsaws that existed in the world, and they opened the levels. And then, like, towards the very end of the game, one of the final sort of challenges to get to Gruntilda, to have the big boss fight at the end, is to complete a board game. Now, it kind of sounds boring when you say a board game, but actually, it was one of the best things I've played in a game. It was so cool, because you'd spend hours and hours learning this game, learning everything about it, investigating all these levels, and then you got to this board game, and instead of it just being like move a cursor on the screen or something like that, or here's some questions, the level was a board game, and you actually walked along like you were a piece on the board, and every time you sort of landed on a tile, you had to do whatever that tile was. So it might be a mini game, it might be, they had like a screenshot quiz, so you would have to see an obscure screenshot of a level and then try and work out like what level that was. And for someone like me who had obsessed about this game and found every secret and everything, I absolutely loved this. I just thought it was a brilliant idea to like go back and make you see everything that you've just played and appreciate how great it was. And the challenges, like some of the little mini games were things you'd already done, but they'd maybe mix them up, so they'd make it a bit harder, or they'd put a different boss in, or they'd change the speed of things. And yeah, great. I think that board game bit was probably one of my favourite bits of the game, and obviously the Treasure Trove Cove level was excellent, but all the levels, they were just so good. Like, there's the Clanker, if you remember it, was like a big level where you kind of going inside this huge robot shark who was kind of there to get rid of the garbage in the lair or something. And he was actually quite a nice guy, and there was like a snow level where you were flying around and you're having to like bombard these snowmen who would attack you and help Christmas tree lights get on a Christmas tree. Every level was mad. Every level was so unique. All new characters, new designs. Nothing was kind of copy and pasted across. They were just so special. Like, I don't know how you can play this game and not love it. Yeah, I just have such fond memories of every world of this game. And if you've not played it, I mean, go and play it, please, because it is a masterpiece of a game. It holds up to this day. I mean, it helps that platformers aren't really a big thing anymore, so they haven't kind of seen those huge jumps and advancements and things. So it doesn't feel old. Like, yeah, the graphics are terrible now, but they're good enough, and the music and everything else holds up perfectly. Like, it's just so good. You really need to play this. You've probably played it already if you're listening to this, but go and play it again, because it's so good, and you won't regret it. So that's the end of the podcast, really. Yeah, thanks for listening. Goodbye.